All right, welcome back. A little over halfway through the season. I usually do it right at the halfway point. I waited a little bit. The standings are kind of shaken out, so we have a better idea as to who's going to finish where. A lot going on this board. I do preseason projections for the final standings. I did points this year. Usually that's a bad idea because my points projections are usually pretty off. Standings projections can be hit or miss depending on the year. So it's fun. If you want to troll me, please do. That's kind of half the reason why I do these videos because they're fun and nobody's perfect and you know. Um, so a lot of numbers on the board. We got divisions. We got the current standings as listed, and the team's total points. And the where am I? I can't really tell where I am. This column in the red on the end. That's the projection I had at the beginning of the season for each team. The check mark means I had them making the playoffs. The X means I had them missing the playoffs. Down low, same order of teams in the standings. The first number in the middle row, between the names and the other numbers, that's their total season projections. So essentially, that is the number of points they have divided by the number of games they played times an 82 game season. So, for example, Tampa Bay projected to have 113 points at the end of the year. And then the final is how far off was I from their final season projections. In this case, Tampa will do 10 better than I projected, 10 points better. So, we're going to dive through. This might be a longer video because there's a lot on the board. So, if you want to look at the numbers and stop and, give up, that's perfectly okay. I get it. This is, again, just for fun. I don't do this for views or anything, so don't stress about it. But starting off the top, we got the Tampa Bay Lightning at 70 points, first place in the Atlantic. They are, I had them projected for 103 points, making the playoffs. I could have organized this a little better. I kind of did this after because I didn't really think of it as I was writing it on the board. Tampa is projected for 113 points this year, so they'll be 10 better than what I projected at the beginning of the season. That's 5 regulation wins, which is something, right? Second place currently is Detroit Red Wings. They currently have 69 points. They are projected for 107 points to finish the season, which is great for them. I had them projected for 89 points. I was off by minus 18. So I had them projected for 18 points less than they're projected to have at this current pace. Third place currently is the Buffalo Sabres. This is a team, I made the mistake one year of projecting them, I think, second in the Atlantic, and they finished, I think it was last or second to last. I'm pretty sure it was last place in the Atlantic. So I told myself I would never put them in the playoffs until they proved me wrong. This might be the year, finally. Currently, they're projected for 101 points. They've been on a hot streak for quite some time now. This team, this roster, for years has been good. They're just not getting what they need from the players to succeed. And I think a lot of that starts with management and so on. Nonetheless, they're starting to put it all together this year, which is great news for Sabres fans. There are a lot of Sabres fans out there. Ticket prices are a little expensive, comparatively speaking, to the product you've had. So you might not see that stadium as full as it probably should be. But at the same time, there are a lot of Sabres fans out there. If the tickets were a little cheaper, that would be without a doubt packed. It might be packed now. I haven't really kept an eye on stadium capacities halfway through the season. But Buffalo projected for 101 points. I had it projected for 77 points, missing the playoffs. They're projected to do 38 points better than my projections, which is incredible. It's great. It's fun to have these little stories, right? Some of these teams that nobody had any faith in or expectations of, just going off, making a run, making some noise, potentially getting into the playoffs. Now, keep in mind, a lot of these standings are still very bunched together, right? Sabres at 63. So are the two wildcard teams with the Canadiens and Bruins at 63. Panthers at 59, right? So you have 4 teams within 4 points of each other. all with different amounts of games played already. So, they may make the playoffs. They might not make the playoffs. Either way, at least they're close this year. If not, they'll make it. Next up is the Montreal Canadiens. They have 63 points. First wild card team. I had them projected for 87 points, missing the playoffs. They're currently projected for 99 points. That's 12 points better than what I initially projected at the beginning of the season. This team's offense is it's an offensively heavy core, right? The defensive core can be iffy at times for sure, but you're getting a lot of team defense and you're getting buy-in from your forwards to come and help back and help your goaltender, help your defense out, and transition that to offense, which has really been it's always fun hockey to watch. Makes you a little nervous as a fan sometimes because they're going to get odd man rushes the other way, but it's high flying, it's fun offense, and this team's controlling a lot of the zone time in a lot of the games they play. I'm a Bruins fan. Canadians are a fun team to watch. I won't voluntarily watch them, but I have, and they're a lot of fun to watch. So if you're just into good hockey, Canadians are a fun team right now. Next up is Boston, the Boston Bruins. They have 63 points. I had them projected for 68 points. They're almost about to eclipse that. I had them missing the playoffs. I had them coming in last place in the Atlantic Division. They're currently on a 97-point pace. Again, they're projected to do 34 points better than what I anticipated. It's been a weird year for Boston. They really don't have a whole lot of offense, but they're sacrificing their defensive ability in trying to transition that to offense, and it's worked out really well offensively. Defensively, you're seeing a lot more goals going. You're seeing a lot more odd man rushes going the other way. There are definitely questions. The defensive core as a whole is pretty solid. So it's kind of a surprise, and I think with Montreal and Boston, both of the storylines are without a doubt coaching. Coaches have made a difference. They've really changed the game plans and tactics of how they want to play. Canadians for a few years now, and Bruins this year, and it's been effective and worked. It's been adjusting to a new style of play we're seeing throughout the league, and it's been successful. So there's that. Florida, again, without Barkov. Kachuk just came back. Marchand's kind of been doing great. He just came back from like a short injury. Florida has 59 points. They're projected to finish the season with 95 points at their current pace. I had them projected at 108 points, which is... So they'll finish 13 points below what I anticipated them finishing as. Which is fine. We didn't really know how they would respond after 2 Stanley Cup runs. Those are really long seasons, short off seasons, right? Not a whole lot of time for players to recover. And they were dealing with some pretty major injuries. And still, as a lot of teams are, dealing with a lot of injuries. But nonetheless, they've been getting better. They've been getting hotter. We'll see. There's still some teams to... Well, they're pretty close. The first team out of the wild card, so... We'll see. I don't really know how much more they're going to be able to give, and if they're going to make the playoffs or not. It's going to be a fun race. I'm just going to throw that out there. Toronto kind of took a big fall. They have 57 points. They're projected for 90 points. Keep in mind, Florida with 95 and Toronto with 90 at their current pace is projected to miss the playoffs in the East. I had Toronto projected for 107 points. That is, my projection was 17 points higher than their current pace. There's been some issues with Toronto, right? Austin Matthews is a primary... he gets a lot of the spotlight and stuff, and there's issues kind of all around. They've had goaltending injuries and issues, and not a whole lot of stability in net, and they've had some injuries on their blue line, and there's been some other pieces that have kind of been happening in their forward core. Austin Matthews is kind of like the big name, and when he's not producing at a big name rate, people ask questions. I see a lot of him struggling to transition from offense to defense and vice versa. I feel like he's either offensively oriented or he's defensively oriented, and there's no middle ground. Lately, maybe the past, I don't know, since maybe Christmas, we've started to see more of that. He's capable of it, but that's kind of where the playoff Austin Matthews comes into play, right? In the playoffs, he's really defensively orientated. I don't know. He's focusing on defense in the playoffs. He struggles to transition his defense to offensive play and production. And that was kind of an issue with Mitch Marner, too. I'd say to a lesser extent, I think Mitch Marner's was more lack of effort. Austin Matthews wasn't having a lack of effort issue in the playoffs, at least from what I've watched. I've watched a lot of Leafs playoff series and games, but at the same time, I haven't watched them all. But yeah, I think that's kind of just been par for the course for this team. Going from Sheldon Keefe to Craig Berube, very different coaching style. Berube, kind of a defensive guy. And there's going to be mixed opinions on that. I view him more as a defensive coach than Sheldon Keefe was, where he was a really big, offense, let's go, let's score type of guy. And it's interesting. There's a whole coaching analysis that can be done there, but I'm not going to dive into that in this video. Last up is, Toronto's kind of been hot too, so we'll see. Toronto could make a run. I don't know. The way the season's gone, I don't have a clue. And Ottawa is at 55 points. They're projected to finish with 87. I had them projected for 95 points, so they'll finish 8 below where I anticipated. I guess I want to kind of talk about each team, and I don't feel like I did that. Tampa Bay is just a wagon. Top to bottom, they're solid. Vasilevsky in net has been outstanding lately. Maybe the past, 30 games, he's just been incredible. Detroit, and I have questions for some of these teams. And there's, big jumps. You see Detroit all the way up here in second place, fighting for first place. I have questions. I have a lot of questions about their defensive core. I'm curious how they are without Simon Edmondson, because I think he's on the IR. Ben Sherratt has stepped up his game, but their defensive core is weak outside of Everson and Moritz Seider. I don't know why I wanted to say Schneider there. I was like, it's not Schneider, it's Seider. Moritz Seider. Their offense is strong. It's good. There are some guys you expected and would like to step up a little more, but they're scoring goals. But they're getting buy-in from their forwards to play team defense, and that's made a difference. And they're transitioning that to offense, which isn't the easiest thing to do. It sounds easy. It looks easy. It's not the easiest thing. So I do have questions about their defense. Buffalo, I guess I don't have too many questions. It's just, can they sustain winning? This isn't a thing we've seen from Buffalo in over a decade, so can they continue to push for a playoff spot, or will they fall off? What I said about the Detroit Red Wings, kind of the same thing for the Canadiens, right? Their defensive core kind of got issues. Their offense is just so good, and what they've done. Sorry, I thought I heard somebody coming in my door. That would have been weird. What was I talking about? The Canadiens? Yeah, what they've done, or what St. Louis has done, which I was not expecting, because we haven't seen it in prior years. He's really getting that buy-in for his forwards to play team defense and commit to playing defense, and it's been so effective. It's really improved their overall play, because you have a lot of young, highly skilled guys that can transition that to offense. The Senators are just, again, it's the team defense. I've talked about it for years at this point. They need to find their team defense. Their defensive core really isn't that bad. Their goaltending isn't all that bad. And I know, Ullmark, Merolainen, someone else was in there for a bit. Did they just sign James Reimer? I don't know. I don't think their goaltending's been it hasn't helped them, but it hasn't been like atrociously bad. They're every goalie gives in weak goals, but it also depends. The goalie's success depends a lot on how the team defends in front of the goalie, and that stuff doesn't show up in really any analytic stat. At least the main ones that I could find. So there's also that, right? They need to get their forwards to buy into their team defense. Otherwise, it's going to be questionable. Moving on to the Metro, let's see if we can speed this up a bit. Hurricanes 69 points currently. They are projected for 109 points. I had them projected for 112, so they'll be 3 less than my projection. Pittsburgh Penguins, second place, 63 points. They're projected for 101 points. I had them projected for 72 and missing the playoffs. They're looking like they're going to exceed my projections by 29 points, which is nuts. Excuse me. New York Islanders in third place with 61 points. Now keep in mind, the Penguins, points-wise, are somewhere in the wild card hunt. Depending on, I don't know if they have the tiebreakers over Montreal or Boston or not. They're tied, or Buffalo, they're tied with kind of this group. So I had a project for, Islanders are 61 points. We're on to the Island. 61 points. At their current pace, they're projected to finish with 96 points, and this doesn't take into account strength of schedule. I ain't come up with some algorithm. I don't want to put that time into today to do it. That would be 11 better than what I projected them to finish at, which was 85, just missing the playoffs. Next up is the Flyers at 57 points. Currently second team out of the wild card spot, first team out of the wild card spot in the Metro. They are projected for 92 points. I had them projected for 80, missing the playoffs. Yeah, I did. They're getting better. I think there's a lot of potential and a lot of pieces that are still being underutilized on that team. But some of the pieces that have been excellent this year are being utilized appropriately. Rasmus Ristolainen, for example, looks more comfortable than ever and playing a solid defensive hockey type of game, and it's been effective, right? Next up is the Capitals at 57 points. So they're 4 points out of third place. They're 6 points out of a wild card spot, assuming they have a tiebreaker with one of those teams. The Capitals are projected for 88 points. I had them for 104, so that's minus 16. Yeah, to be honest, it's really hard to watch Washington Capitals games because I'm in their market. They you really can only have, Verizon and Comcast Xfinity. They're not on anything else. You can't stream them, and I'm not paying $20 or $25 a month just to watch the Capitals, and I can't do it with their commentators. I can't, man. So I've only watched nationally broadcasted games, so I really don't have a lot of insight as to what's going on in Washington, which is ironic because that's the market I'm in, and I should be the most in tune to it, and that's what I should be getting on my social media and stuff, but that's not quite what happens. So I couldn't tell you too much about Washington. I've only watched them play one game, and it was kind of an uneventful game for both teams. It was nationally broadcasted. So there's an exception there. New Jersey Devils, 56 points currently. They're projected at their current pace to finish at 88 points. I had them at 86, so they would beat my projection by 2 points. Spot on, man. Spot on. I had them missing the playoffs. Right now they're outside the playoffs. We'll see. Next up, the Columbus Blue Jackets. This is a bit of a risky pick on my end. Currently they're at 55 points. They got their new coach. They got Rick Boneson. They got the coaching bump. I don't know how sustainable this is. I'm just going to be completely transparent. I was high on this team coming into the year, watching them. It's a lot of third period blown leads. I've actually watched a lot of Blue Jackets games this year because this team has intrigued me. It's been really frustrating to watch. I feel so bad for Blue Jackets fans out there. It's been rough. So they're projected to finish at 88 points at their current pace, which isn't too bad, all things considered, because they were in last place for a while in the East. I had them projected at 95 points, so that's only 7 below my projection. I also had the Jackets. Oh, I had them making the playoffs. Why did I cross all these teams off? The Capitals and the Blue Jackets I had made the playoffs. I do apologize for that. So projection's not super far off. If they keep winning, their total season projection will go up, their points projection. So we'll see. Last up, though, New York Rangers. I had them just missing the playoffs. They currently have 50 points. They're on pace for 77 points. I had them personally projected for 93 points, just missing the playoffs. Right? Or maybe I had them... Yeah, first team out of the playoffs. So it'll be 16 points less than my projection. Again, for perspective, that's 8 regulation losses or 8 regulation wins, or 4 regulation wins and 8 overtime losses. Not really helping my case there. Moving on to the Central, Colorado Avalanche have been an absolute tank of a team. Currently, they have 79 points. They're projected for 130 points. I had them projected for 111 points. So I'm still below by 19 points. With that being said, Devon Toews is such an anchor on that blue line for them. He plays big minutes, and he's so good defensively, and I'm by no means a Devon Toews fan, but respect where respect is due. They've been hurting without him, and it's not just Devon Toews that's been out. Landeskog has also been out. But you've seen them have fairly average numbers. I think, what are they, 4-4-2? Yeah, 4-4-2 over their last 10 games without those 2 players. So there are vulnerabilities there, so we'll see. But they're sitting real comfy in first place. They're still, with their last 10 games, projected to get 130 points. Those guys will come back at some point relatively soon, I think. They'll be just fine. The Minnesota Wild are currently in second place with 68 points. They're on pace for 105 points. I had them projected for 107 points, so that'll be 2. So they're on pace to get 2 less points than I projected. 2 overtime losses or a regulation loss. Next up is Dallas. 67 points. All 3 of these teams kind of pedestrian lately. They're all, well, Minnesota and Colorado are 4-4-2 in their last 10. I got it right here, so it's great. The Dallas Stars are 4-5-1 in their last 10. So these were 3 teams that were dominating. They've looked fairly pedestrian the past few weeks. And there's reasons for each team. There's been injuries and so on, but we're staying on topic here. So the Dallas Stars are projected for 106 points. I had them projected for 113 points. So they're projected to finish 7 less points than what I expected. Next up is the Utah Mammoth, 58 points, sitting in a wild card spot. They are projected to finish with 91 points. I projected them to finish with 92 points. That's 1 less point than I projected. That's good. I don't know how close that's going to be at the end of the season, but that's, for now, I'm going to take a little pride in that. All right. Yeah, Utah is just doing Utah things. It's kind of what we expect from them. They'd like Logan Cooley back, doing well, doing Logan Cooley things, but they're doing. Next up is the Nashville Predators at 52 points. They're projected for 84 points. I had them projected for 66 points for the whole season. I didn't think they were going to be good at all or win games. So if they finish at 84 points, which they're on pace for, that'll be 18 more points than what I anticipated. Next up, Chicago Blackhawks. They have 50 points. They're projected to finish with 79 points at their current pace. We know with Bedard back, are they winning? I don't even know if Bedard's back yet. I'm not going to lie. They took a big hit once Bedard went out with injury. I thought he was back. Not 100% though. Anyway, they're projected to finish at their current pace with 79 points. I had them projected for 72 points. That would be 7 points better than what I expected. Winnipeg Jets, 47 points. They're currently projected to finish the season with 76 points. I don't think I did a good job with these check marks. Yeah. I had them making the playoffs. I also had the Blues make the playoffs. Yeah. Sorry. Not doing a good job with these check marks, huh? I only have... What is going on here? I think it was LA. No, it was the Canucks. Okay. This is why you check your work, right? Well, I don't even know. Was that the Jets, right? They're projected for 76. I had them projected for 96 points, making the playoffs. I thought they were going to take a big step back. I already had them dropping because they won the President's Trophy last year. I had them losing a bunch of points. I didn't expect the fall to be this harsh and severe. Part of that was Connor Hellebuck getting injured, which definitely hurt them quite a bit. They could not win a game to save the life of him while he was out. But part of it is just solidifying that second-line center spot. Jonathan Taves, he's not the guy. He's not a second-line center at this point in his career. I think we kind of knew that going in. The Jets, I guess, didn't know that. So here we are. That'll be 20 points less than what I projected, which is insane because I think I projected them, I don't know, I think I projected them down like 13 points already. St. Louis Blues are in last with 47 points. They're tied for last. They're projected to finish the season with 74 points because they've played more games than Winnipeg. I had projected for 98 points making the playoffs. I thought they were going to grow off of what they did last year. They had a lot of young pieces that really, looked good, and the future kind of looked bright for a second. They also had a hot second half that really got them in that playoff mix last year. They weren't good at the beginning of the season. So I over-projected by 24 points at their current pace. Pacific, Las Vegas, number 1, 62 points. They're projected to finish with 100 points. I had them projected with 116 points. I thought they were going to win the President's Trophy. Boy, was I wrong. Not even close. So I was off by 16 points. They're projected to do 16 points worse than my projections. Edmonton Oilers, 62 points currently. Projected to finish with 94 points. They played more games in Vegas. Just double checking. Yep. They played 3 more games in Vegas. We're doing rates here. I had a projected to finish with 106 points, so that's minus 12 for my projection. Anaheim Ducks, 59 points. They're sitting in third place, right? They're projected to finish with 91 points. I had them projected with 83, so they do 8 points better than my projections. Yeah, I mean, Ducks, kind of the same thing with Montreal and Detroit. Their defensive core, I have a lot of questions. But their forward core is very good defensively. It's excellent. Leo Carlson has stepped up in more than one ways. Defensively, he is absolutely fantastic. And for such a young kid, and he's scoring at such a great rate. And that's just to name one. There's a lot of guys that have really contributed both offensively and defensively. So this team, Lucas Dostal has had to stand on his head quite a bit. He's an excellent goalie. I don't know how sustainable that is. It could be. We saw that kind of with Tim Thomas in Boston years ago. But if he does, that's a really, really special goaltender that you really don't see often in the NHL. So we'll see if that's sustainable. But their defensive core, in their own defensive zone, I do have questions. Guys like Zellweger, questionable on defense. Jackson Lacombe, I know he gets a lot of love, and he is a special talent. Defensively, there is a lot he needs to work on. There's a lot defensively he needs to work on. I made it a point to really watch him a whole lot this year. A lot of improvements have been made. There's still a lot to improve upon. So I do have questions with the Ducks. But they're doing good things, and this is great for the team and the fan base. I've by no means been a Ducks fan, going back to the days when they had Getzlaff and Ryan Kessler and all these guys. But yeah, it's nice to see some of these guys do well and get rewarded for it. Um, Fourth place is the San Jose Sharks. Again, kind of the same thing with the Red Wings, the Canadiens, the Penguins. I don't even know if I mentioned the Penguins earlier. And the Ducks. Defensive core, definitely highly questionable. Offensive core is so good, it doesn't really matter. Sharks are at 55 points. They're projected to finish the season with 90 points. I projected them to finish with 58 points. They only need 3 more points. They've only played 50 games. If they just get a win and an overtime loss, they could match my point projection in 52 games, which is just an insane stat. Sharks are doing a lot better, and they look pretty legit. So I'd be off by 32 points for them, which is a lot. That's missing the mark. The Stars, there are some teams I've missed the mark, but the Stars, I've really missed the mark down here. So Buffalo, Boston, Pittsburgh, San Jose, and Vancouver. Both positive and negative. LA Kings, I had them just missing the playoffs. They're at 55 points. They're projected to finish with 90 points. I projected them to finish with 93 points, so we're only off by 3. I had them 3 more points higher than what they're on pace for. The Seattle Kraken are at 55 points. They're projected to finish with 88 points. I had them, my preseason projections had them at 73 points. That'll be 15 points higher than my projection, which is great. We've seen them kind of take a step back. They're 3-5-2 in their last 10. They got off to a hot start. They were in a playoff spot for quite some time at the beginning of the season. They're starting to cool off a bit. So we'll see. Next up is the Calgary Flames. They have 48 points. They're projected to have 76 points. I had it projected to get 86 points. So that's 10 higher than what they're on pace for. Last up is the Vancouver Canucks. They have 39 points. They're projected to finish the season at their current pace with 62 points. I had them projected for 94 points and making the playoffs by a point. That missed the mark real bad. So it's always fun to look at. These point projections aren't what these teams are going to finish at, and some of these teams aren't even going to be close to the point projections at the end of the year. Some of these teams have about 30 games, some a little more, some a little less. There's a lot that can happen. Some teams are trending up, some teams are trending down. The Bruins, who knows? They're either really hot for long stretches or they're really cold for stretches, and who knows what we can expect. A lot of these teams in playoff spots have vulnerabilities that can and have been exposed. Will some of those vulnerabilities hold up throughout the season and push these teams to a playoff spot or keep them in a spot? Or will kind of these veteran teams or teams that you kind of expected more from pull it out in the last 30 games? You kind of expect more from Toronto, Florida, the Capitals. I think some people were expecting the Devils. I wasn't super high on them. Maybe the Predators, right? The Oilers, Vegas. They're pretty safely in a playoff spot. LA Kings, I think a lot of people had the Kings in a playoff spot. So we'll see. Just to put it out there, right? The last wild card spot in the Eastern Conference is 63 points. That means if you look at the Western Conference, there's only 5 teams out of a potential 8 that would make the playoffs in the East. Given their schedules would be different, the points totals would look different if they were in another conference, and that's another analysis we can do at a later date. Some of these teams play really good against the East and can't beat their own divisional opponents, and vice versa, right? So it's kind of insane. You have so what do you have? You have the Sharks projected at 90 points to make the playoffs at their current pace. Utah at 91 points. That's the Central. The Islanders are the lowest team projected at 96 points to make the playoffs in the East. So that's already a 6-point difference. That's 3 regulation wins. And for the last wild card spot, 97 points is the projection for on pace. So that'll be 7 points more than you know the pace that the San Jose Sharks is on. Just to kind of put a little perspective into it. So you see a lot of these teams in the West doing really well. They're doing well for their respective conferences and divisions. There's a few more points over in the East than there is the West. Kind of can tell you that, there's a little tighter in the East. Kind of can tell you that the East might be a little more balanced and the West might be a little more lopsided. There might be more poorer teams and a few really strong teams in the West, whereas the East is for the most part fairly open. I'd say really the two non-surprises of the East are the Hurricanes and Tampa. I think everybody expected them to make the playoffs. I don't know how high people were on Tampa going into the season. I don't remember. I had them making the playoffs at 103 points. They're on a 113-point pace. But other than that, I think for the most part, there's a lot of surprises kind of scattered throughout here. Central, we knew who the top three teams were going to be. I don't understand why people had Minnesota so low in a lot of their projections. That kind of threw me off. They had a lot of issues last year, a lot of big injuries. Kaprizov didn't play half the season. Boldy was almost their entire roster was injured and missed decent time. I think it was Rossi and maybe Faber were the only two players to not miss time on that team last year. So that was I was a little confused about that. Again, health is always an issue with Minnesota. There is that, but over the years they've battled through injuries and still been a 100-plus point team. So, last year, I don't know. You can't really go off of that. Vegas, I'm a bit surprised. Vegas is such a loaded team. I'd say their biggest hole is goaltending. Aiden Hill, he's a great guy. I don't think he's the guy in net. He obviously got hot in the playoffs when Vegas won the cup, and that was great. But your other options, is he hurt? He was hurt for a bit. You have Carter Hart, who has been awful and is hurt. I don't know when he's projected to be back. Don't really care. I'm not gonna lie. He shouldn't have got. It blew my mind when they kept giving him starts. He'd have a bad game and he'd get the very next start. I'd be like, why? He was not even serviceable. And you got Schmidt. I like Schmidt a lot. You got to balance his workload out. At the very least, if it's Schmidt and Carter Hart, you go every other game or something. You got to balance out that workload. So I think that's my biggest concern with Vegas. There are others, defensively. At times, some of their guys are, they're pretty good defensively, but at the same time, do you have those guys in the right spot in the lineup? Are you lacking somewhere? Offensively, there are some guys you kind of expected more, and there are some guys that are just exceeding expectations or proving themselves. So I'm not super concerned about that. I don't know what the Oilers are doing. They're just running it back, relying on Draisaitl and McDavid. So there's that. The Sharks have been an absolutely pleasant surprise. Celebrini, wow, just unbelievable. Offensively, he's outstanding, and we knew that. We knew that coming into the draft. Before he was drafted, we knew that when he first stepped on the ice, and he's proven that. But how much his defensive game has grown so much. There's still room for improvement, but his defensive game for his age is absolutely fantastic. Celebrini and Carlson blowing my minds. Doesn't happen too often. Brock Faber was one when that happened. He was and he's a defensive defenseman, right? You don't expect Brock Faber to put up 40-plus points a year. He's there for his defense. That's why he was drafted. That's his entire draft profile. That's what he was in college and previously. So That was kind of expected with Brock Faber to an extent, and usually those guys take a little longer to kind of, grow and keep up at an NHL pace. It can be tougher for those players that are offensively minded and oriented, and that's why they get drafted. You can see the tools with these players, but that doesn't mean they're going to put it together, and sometimes it doesn't. Patrick Laine is an example of that. Celebrini has exceeded those expectations. You kind of expect him to be on a pace more like a Connor Bedard. And no shame to Connor Bedard, absolutely outstanding offensively. His defense is, taking more of a normal progression. I'd say it's a little better than an 18-year-old's progression would be coming straight out of, the Canadian Hockey League. There's still a lot of room for improvement in Bedard's defensive game, and Celebrini has exceeded that. They're both incredibly offensively oriented players, and we'll continue to see both of them grow, both offensively and defensively, and that'll be great. But yeah, Bedard is good, and there's no shame to him, and there's a lot of comparison between Bedard and Celebrini, but Celebrini he's just exceeding expectations, and the expectations for both these players were already sky high. Celebrini is exceeding them. He's just an absolutely outstanding player. And there's a lot of fun young players on the Sharks to watch. There's so many. And there are some guys that, are still figuring it out and learning and have a lot of potential. Sam Dickinson, great example. He's gotta be better on the defensive end of the game, but at the same time, you can see he has those tools. And given enough reps, given enough practice and coaching, he will get there. And so this team's only getting better every single game. They're fun to watch. But yeah, I don't think there's too many. I don't know. It's a very interesting season. It's a very fun season. There's a lot of different things going on. A lot of teams you didn't expect jumping up. A lot of teams you expected to do well, not doing so well, but making a push, right? And I'd say for the most part, most teams have a chance to make the playoffs. Again, at this point, it's not necessarily how close you are in points. It's the number of teams you have to jump and get by, right? You look at, I don't know, we'll say the Maple Leafs, for example, right? You're tied with the Capitals, Flyers, given those are also metropolitan teams, but you're essentially fighting for a wild card spot at this point. Maybe one of those teams, or you're fighting with the Islanders if one of those teams jump up. And then you're fighting with either the Bruins, Canadians, or Sabres, right? So that's 1, 2, 3. That's 4 teams you got to jump. On any given night, we say it's a Tuesday, every team's playing, or all these teams are playing. It's likely that one of those other 4 teams might get a win. It really delays the process of jumping through those standings, right? So you're getting the points, but other teams are also getting points because that's, points are given out every game. So it can be tough. But, yeah, if you want to make a case that the Ottawa Senators are still in contention, they could absolutely go on a run and still make the playoffs. I don't see that happening, but at the same time, crazier things have happened. St. Louis Blues last year, for example. St. Louis Blues in 2019, for example, when they won the Stanley Cup, right? So, yeah, it's teams that are out of it. I'd probably say, definitely, probably do not have a shot unless they pretty much get close to winning out. I'd say the Rangers, Jets, Blues, Canucks, and the Flames are 7 points out, right? You could kind of make a case, especially given their play and roster. It's tough. But I've just been rambling for 10 minutes now, so I appreciate you. Take care, right?